This is another DrumWise mix, and today I'm here with Darby Todd. Darby has played with the likes of The Darkness and Gary Moore, and he's currently touring the world with Martin Barre's Jethro Tull. Hi, Darby.
How are you? You okay?
My first question, the typical question in an interview like this.
What sticks do I use?
What equipment do you use?
Close enough. Well, I'm actually in my studio here. It's a shame you can kind of see my floor tom, and actually, most important part, I've got my cowbell. So I'm sure that's all people want to know. I've played a drum company called Pork Pie Drums now for, like over 20 years, I think. We're a custom company out of California. Really love their drums. Bill Detmore over there makes, amazing product, does amazing finishes, and basically builds me whatever I want. And I get too many drum kits from him, and it's a bad habit, and I need to slow it down. But yeah, they're really good. And then obviously cymbal-wise, I've played Zildjian, my entire life. In fact, I don't think I've ever really played anything else. Love those. I think they make really good cymbals. Interesting enough, over the years, I've played every range of Zildjian you could possibly have. And after years of neglecting the basic A range, like the boring bog standard Zildjian that, they made from right back in the beginning, that's all I play now. I absolutely love those. They sound fantastic. So I've got those. What else do I have? My sticks. A company called Los Cabos, which are a Canadian company. I met them at NAMM a couple of years ago and chatted with them. They gave me some sticks to try out, and I just absolutely love them. There's kind of every company makes good sticks, but I find some company sticks have got too much lacquer, not enough lacquer, and for me the weight is great. They feel amazing, and grip wise they're cool, so I use those. God, there's so many companies. I'm scared I'm going to miss someone out. My best investment recently. I'm going to show you this. Is this thing. This has absolutely changed my life. Have you got one of these?
I have. I love it.
How amazing is this thing?
Incredible.
So if anyone doesn't know what, I sound like I'm doing an advertisement, but I'm not. I bought this with my own money. The Porter & Davis vibrating drum chair, which since I've moved to in-ears while being on tour, just absolutely revolutionizes my playing. Just your stall vibrates every time you hit the kick drum. It's just like a magic box, really, isn't it? You kind of it just creates drum sound that's not really there. So love that. Protection racket cases I use. God, I'm sure there's stuff I'm missing out. I'll remember it later on.
Drum heads.
People, what's that?
Drum heads.
Oh yeah, Remo. Clear Emperors on the tops, clear Ambassadors on the bottom, and I've been using coated Ambassadors on my snare, but I think I want to change that because I want to find a snare head that's a little less ringy. Have you got any tips?
Yeah, Evans.
You know what? Evans make really good snare heads. Before I played Remo, I never quite got on for the sound that I like. I just never really got on with them. They're great. It's like any top range equipment these days are great, but you have to find the gear that works for you, I think. And for me, the Remo sound just that gives me the sound that I have in my head. Same thing with cymbals. Cymbals. Top range cymbals are good, but the different, you can always tell a Paiste cymbal. You can pretty much always tell a Zildjian. I prefer Zildjian, so that's why I play them. But yeah, people get too bogged down on what gear they should use rather than actually just playing and enjoying their instrument.
Yeah, true. But going back to the P&D, that when you're on ears, I think it's just essential because
I agree.
Lose all of without that, and then as soon as you have that, it's just incredible. And I've had it started to cut out during a gig before because I've overloaded it, and when it starts cutting out, you're like, huh? I can't.
Yeah, completely. It's and the worst thing is like when I've experimented in my studio here where I've been using it, and then I'll play for 5 minutes. I go, yeah, this feels good, and then I'll just switch it off, and even my bass drum pedal feels really crappy, and it just feels like I can't play it anymore. It's bizarre. I'll even use it on shows when I'm not on in-ears, and what I find is it means I don't have to thrash the hell out of my monitor, putting tons of kick drum through it. I can feel everything. It's yeah, I wouldn't travel anywhere without that thing. And like I say, I bought it with my own money. It's not like they gave me one, so I'm saying good things about it. It's like if I am going to spend money on equipment now, I do my research and I make sure it's going to be, you know, something that's going to benefit me. It's too easy just to buy stuff that doesn't really help, and that's one of the things that does. And in fact, we did a tour in Australia just before Christmas, and so on my equipment rider is obviously a Porter and Davis thing, and you know, most of the rental companies are able to get me one, and then a couple of other rental companies couldn't and had like third party other people's versions, and I ended up just switching them off. They were that crap.
All right.
Yeah, so and I won't mention any names, but yeah, I've worked out that's definitely the one.
Interesting. What I do with mine, just as a side note here, I used to get a lot of bass guitar through mine as well, so I trigger it now. So I use a Roland trigger on my bass drum.
Okay.
I go into the trigger into the line in, and it makes such a difference. It's amazing.
Really?
Yeah. It was Dill recommended that I do that, and I've tried.
So you just get a really nice clean sound.
Clean. I do the trigger into a TM1, the little module, and then into the P and D, and yeah,
that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. I mean, I'm lucky. When we tour, we've got our own sound crew, so they literally get it all working and do it all for me. So they iron out any problems before sound check that might arise, because, you know, depending on what room you're in, you might have to change the frequency that you send to the unit. The thing I've been thinking about doing actually is no one's probably interested in this, but I'll tell you anyway, is I'm thinking about, for monitoring my kick drum, actually doing what you're doing and putting a trigger on it and actually just listening back to a triggered sample as my bass drum monitor mix and not the natural one. Just because I found occasionally you just get a really shitty sounding room that you play in, and it doesn't, you know, there's too much room sound coming in your ears, or there's just whatever. So I might experiment with that next.
Yeah.
See how it goes.
I mean, I'm on a Vista Light as well, so it's such a clicky drum.
Yeah.
So that's why I've done it like that. Anyway,
cool. Enough about that.
Talk about that forever. What age did you start drumming, and what bands inspired you when you first started playing?
I started playing drums when I was 6, so obviously I've only been playing 15 years now. But yeah, started when I was 6, and I don't think necessarily when I was that age I was, you know, listening to bands going, oh, this is really inspiring me to be a drummer. I was just listening to music that was, you know, on the radio or on telly, or I had on a CD or whatever at the time. And I think it was only when I grew up and, you know, sort of maybe got about 10 or 11 that I started discovering, you know, actual drummers that I went, God, they're good, or I like this type of music or whatever. So yeah, I don't think my musical taste developed that early. But I would say as I got a bit older, I had probably four main drummers that I absolutely loved and kind of wanted to be like. And actually, even to this day, I think my playing, you can hear all of those people in my playing, and those are Dave Weckl, Greg Bissonette, Simon Phillips, and Dennis Chambers. Right. They were, as growing up in my young teens, they were the guys. And actually, to this day, they still are. They really are. And I also, you know, I love people like Jeff Porcaro as well, because I was a massive Toto fan. But, you know, in terms of trying to make myself the technical player that I am today, I think those were the main guys. But then I also love people like, I was a massive Van Halen fan, so loved Alex Van Halen as well. You know, Bernard Purdie was great. That was someone that I heard on records and liked. But yeah, those 4 guys were definitely my main influences.
Cool. Excellent. That was actually my next question. And so actually, let's do that anyway, because it's a slight twist on that. If you had to pick just one, and I know this is really hard, you might not be able to, but if you had to pick just one, who's your all-time favourite drummer?
You know what? That has changed over the years, and I think sometimes it changes from week to week, depending on who I want to study. I think right now my all-time favorite drummer, and this is, I'm really late to the party with him. I mean, I've known his work for years, but never bothered to go that deep with what he did, is Vinny Colaiuta. Right now, I've been studying him so much and like dissecting solos and dissecting playing and trying to work out what he does. And yeah, he's my favorite at the minute.
Cool.
I would never use that phrase, who's the best drummer in the world, because that's just very subjective and it's stupid.
Totally. And also that's a bit of a loaded question, because if someone asked me who my favourite drummer was, I'd be like,
Yeah, exactly. And then if you ask a magazine poll of who the best drummer in the world is, they'll say Lars Ulrich.
Yeah. Oh, don't get me started with that one. Right.
Hey, I just said his name. I didn't say anything good or bad.
No, nor did I. I just said don't get me started. I was going to go with that, you know.
I can see you thinking, though.
There might be a poster over there, you know, on the wall.
Exactly.
So what's the highlight of your career so far?
In a way, I mean, I've been really fortunate. I've done a lot of really cool stuff. I think the highlight for me is the fact that I'm still maintaining a career in drums, and I seem to be able to go from gig to gig, and I've made a lot of friends and relationships, you know, musically and non-musically, that allow me to continue doing what I'm doing. Maybe that's a little bit of a facetious answer, but you know, I think the fact that becoming a musician on any instrument, you know, let alone an instrument where you can't just go out and do a solo gig on your own in a restaurant to make, you know, 200 quid on a Saturday night if you've got no work, you know, it's difficult. So any drummer that's able to maintain a sense of income from doing stuff, that's kind of the highlight of my career, and the fact I'm still doing it. Obviously, playing wise, I've done some cool things, and that's probably what people really want to know. I would say playing The Power of Love with Huey Lewis was right up there. I would say playing which song? A Whole Lot of Love with Robert Plant from Led Zeppelin was right up there. Headlining the Isle of Wight Festival with The Darkness was pretty cool, because that was kind of, you know, playing hit songs with a rock band that you liked. That was awesome. Playing the Final Countdown with Kee Marcello, the guitarist from Europe. Tons of stuff, but I don't really put it down to any one thing. Those are just sort of fun days out where you've had a good gig or a good tour. But I truly think maintaining a working lifestyle with music, that's an achievement. And I think anyone that can make money from music, you know, they don't have to tour the world and play in front of 200,000 people a night, but you know, if you can support yourself somehow doing what you studied all those years to do, be it teaching or, you know, whatever, I think that's cool. I think that should be anyone's highlight.
Great answer. Yeah, really good answer.
I've met musicians, you know, met them and chatted to them, and occasionally I stay in touch with them, but work hasn't come to fruition for like 12 years. You know, it's taken that long for something to align that they suddenly go, I'm going to call Darby, or I'm going to call Tom, or I'm going to call whoever. So I think actually, I'm switching this, I'm probably stealing one of your questions about how you get work and stuff, but I just think making, again, it doesn't matter what job you do, make relationships with people, and you know, don't be overbearing, and don't just start phoning someone every other day going, hey man, can I dep your gigs? Can I do this? Because people get really, that wears really thin. But just make relationships with people, talk to them, become friends, and you'd be amazed eventually how things come full circle and work. And it's interesting, actually, without naming names, there's a couple of, you know, great musicians that I know back in the day who I kind of run into, and, you know, they would be polite to me, but, you know, that was about it. Oh yeah, hey Darby, how you doing? Right, sorry, I've got to talk to this person. And then kind of as years go on, and I've made inroads. Well, not inroads is the wrong word because that makes it sound like I'm trying to do something. But I've cultivated relationships with people, and suddenly I meet that other musician again, and just by virtue of the fact I'm hanging out with this person or working with this band or this musician, suddenly I'm really cool in their eyes. And that, you know, it might be a bit shitty in a way, but that's how life works. You know, the people need, you know, verification that, you know, they're doing the right thing. You know, some of the famous people I work with are the nicest people in the world, but you do see them out and about, and they have their guard up, and it's not because they're assholes. It's just because they get barraged all the time with stuff. So you kind of got to try and have a filter and work out, you know, who you should, you know, devote your energy to. So I think that's where that comes from as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a very good point. And we'll come back to a similar thing about that. Like,
Sure. I'm sure we could talk about that all day.
so this one is very much from an education point of view. I kind of know how you do this because obviously I've spent time with you with stuff. So when you first get a gig with a new artist, you learn songs. So do you just listen? Do you transcribe? Are you given all of the sheet music and they go, here you go, Darby, here's the entire show written out in drum music?
Oh, wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be nice? That would be great. I mean, it can vary depending on what you're doing. I mean, I guess it's possible if you were to land a, you know, I used to play drums in the Lion King in the West End, the Disney show. And in fact, Andy Newmark, who's an amazing drummer, called me in to do that. And I remember he went, right, Darby, what's your address? He photocopied all the charts, sent them through. And, you know, it was pretty much play what's on the chart, you know, few places you can ad lib, but that would be an area where, you know, you were sent music. The majority of the time, I just get sent, well, it's not even a CD now, a Dropbox just full of songs. And they go, right, here's our set, learn this. So I have to find the best way possible for me to learn those songs, which I think is different for every person. You know, we all work differently. It's like, as a teacher, you could teach a particular pattern to someone and, you know, person A understands the first way you've done it, but for person B, you've got to explain it a different way. And I think it's the same thing for songs. You know, just because I do it one way doesn't mean that's what's going to work for you. But I'm quite busy, so I don't have the time to listen to a song 20 times and try and commit it to memory. It's just, I think that's a waste of my time. So what I tend to do, for instance, when I got the gig with Martin Barre doing the Jethro Tull thing, I was on tour with Carl Verheyen in Europe. So I didn't have much time to sort of learn the songs before my audition. So I just sat on the tour bus and got their whole set and just transcribed the whole thing out. And I think I see a lot of people that do like road maps and stuff, and you know, that's cool, but I tend to transcribe a little bit more full than that. Not necessarily every little nuance, but just, you know, all the hits. I don't just write out stabs on the top of the page. I'll write out the grooves. And what I find is by the time I've done that in Sibelius, I 95% know the song. And I'll find them on stage, and you know, if I'm having trouble, I can almost visualize the notes. It's really bizarre. Plus, I think the other great thing about doing that is, you know, if you're on a show and you haven't had quite enough time to learn it, or you just have a brain fart while you're on the gig, you know, you can always have your iPad down there out of sight, and I'll be playing and I go, oh shit, what's coming up in the next chorus? Just have a little, oh yeah, that's what it is, and then carry on without reading the music. So for me, I think being able to listen and transcribe is really, really important.
So actually, another point there. So as a drummer, obviously some drummers don't read, and you know, that's cool. There's cool. Not reading, but
I think having the skill of reading will make your life a lot easier. Yeah, and writing as well. I mean, I'm a fluent writer. I can pretty much write out anything I hear. My reading's good, but you know, I still have to like look at things and go, oh, what's that? And you know, I can't. You know, I have to look over things a bit more. But actually, I think that's most people. You know, there's very few people you can just put up a page of fly crap up and they'll, you know, nail it first time. But they're the ones that are truly great.
Yeah. So have you ever had anything go wrong on stage that you've had to recover from, that you can tell us about? Any like big funny things that you can share?
I'm sure there are. Off the top of my head, what's in like equipment going wrong or just screwing up?
Yeah, or falling improviser or, you know, that kind of stuff.
Uh, Oh yeah, the one I've had is like I've been on stage rocking out and I'm pretending I'm really cool, and I stand up at one point to hit cymbals and like rip one of the cables and my in-ears out so I can barely hear anything. That's never good. But anything going majorly wrong? No, I don't think so. I mean, you know, break snare heads and stuff or drop a stick, but you just pick another stick up and carry on. You know, I've never like fallen off the stage or you know, done anything really stupid.
Yeah.
Unless I've just put it all out of my memory and I don't remember. Probably by the end of the interview, I'll think of something amusing and send it back and tell you.
I was thinking of those like slow motion moments, you know, where something goes wrong and then to you it's like a whole half hour's passed when it's actually 2 seconds. Like,
right. No, unfortunately, I think I'm boring on that front. I can't think of anything.
what are your hobbies away from drumming?
Wow.
Cycling.
Don't get me started. I've offended enough people on Facebook this week with my comments on cyclists during lockdown, so I'm not going there. This is going to sound really sad. I'm really, you know, I mean, obviously I'm into different things, but I'm just really immersing myself in my drums and my music right now. So another thing I love is recording music. And I've got my studio set up here and people send me drum tracks to do. So actually one of my hobbies is, my main hobby right now is just learning stuff. When I'm not playing or practicing or doing stuff, I want to learn about stuff that I'm interested in. So recording, you know, equipment and using Pro Tools and Logic and mixing better. Those are kind of my main, God, that sounds really sad, doesn't it? It's like, you know what it is? I don't switch off. I'm a bit of a workaholic and you know, in my downtime when I'm not at the studio, I'll just stay at home and relax. You know, I go to the gym every morning when it's open and stuff like that. So I like to stay relatively fit and stuff. But yeah, my main hobby is just my music and learning. I enjoy what I do, and I think the day I'm bored of it is the day that I should stop and find something else. But yeah, I just, like I was saying earlier, I watched Russell Gilbrook's interview this morning, and you know, one point he made, not the only point, by the way, but the one point that really rung home with me is that, you know, you don't get good at anything in life by just practicing for 15 minutes and moving on. You know, that's not going to do anything. It's a constant learning process. I mean, I consider myself a good drummer. I don't mean that in an egotistical way, but I've worked hard my whole life and I think I play well, but I've still got tons more to learn, and I'm always trying to improve myself. You know, I've after this interview, I'm gonna, I've got some recording to do today for someone, but I'm still going to try and practice about 3 hours. So yeah, that is my hobby, my music, and getting better at drums and the greater music thing, you know, recording and stuff like that. That is kind of my hobby.
Yeah, and
I don't go. You know, I like the occasional round of golf, but you know, I don't play 3 times a week, so it's just something I do occasionally. But yeah, and also I think because I've, you know, been away on tour so much, it's very difficult to actually have other hobbies when you're on the road. You know, there's not a whole lot you can do when you're stuck on an airplane for 15 hours, you know, other than relax, you know, watch some Netflix or study. So yeah, I really like to learn.
what sort of person do you think you need to be successful in the music industry? You know, in music in general.
I think, well, I'd like to, I think there's 2 points. The first point people could take issue with me is that I think you have to be as good as you can be at what you do. So if you're a drummer, be the best you can be at that. But then saying that, you know, there's people that play drums for 2 years and then get in a world famous band and they're successful. But I think in terms of, if I narrowed that down to being, you know, a working person, then I think you need to be as good as you can be at your instrument. You need to be as versed in as many styles as possible. I mean, no, that's unfair. You don't have to be, because you might just want to play metal music your whole life, and that's cool. But I think to have longevity and be a well-rounded musician, it pays to learn as many different styles as you can. So I'd say that's my first thing: be as good as you can be at your instrument, and that never stops. You know, I'm a good drummer. I could be better. You know, hopefully next month I will be better at something. The month after that, I'll be a bit better at something else. And then the other thing, which I've said in an interview before, is just don't be a dick. That's the other thing. Just don't be an idiot. Be cool with people. But to me, that's not really anything to do with music. That's just a basic life skill. You know, be nice, be normal, get on with people. It's funny because my wife gives me every day I get off tour. She originally it was 48 hours to calm down, and now that's turned into about 5. Since she came away with us for a week in America, she realized, you know, what goes on. So, you know, she gave me now she gives me like 5 days to calm down. But the funny thing is, she said to me, you guys behave like absolute idiots at points. You know, like we're having fun, we're joking around, maybe being a little bit on the rude side. And she's like, how does someone like, you know, whoever else put up with you guys making those sort of jokes and talking that way? And I was like, I don't do it with that person. It's like you judge the people around you. So if you feel like you're around someone where you can be yourself and be slightly risque or say the wrong thing for a bit of fun between people, that's cool. But when you're in another situation with someone that you know just doesn't behave like that, you know, behave the way they would want you to behave. So you know, judge your surroundings, I think is a good thing. So yeah, be as good as you can be. Don't be a dick, and judge your surroundings and the people that you're working with. I think that's really important. You know, no one wants to work with someone they don't like.
Cool. You could write a book on that.
What, for the bad jokes?
The 3 things.
Yeah, it's a good, but you know that this stuff isn't just about music. It is about life. You know, be aware of your surroundings. You know, and treat people well. And whatever you're going to do, you know, if you know, packing a bag with groceries, do it well. Don't put them so badly that the bag rips and you know it all falls apart. Do your job well. You know, commit to stuff 100%. And I think if you do that, people will like what you do. And I think that's why I've jumped from so many gigs. You know, I like the Jethro Tull thing that I do with Martin Barre. I got a call to do. I used to play with a blues guy called Buddy Whittington years ago, who was John Mayall's guitar player for a very long time, and we'd tour Italy, and the agent out there, Riccardo, you know, would come on tour with us, and he'd book gigs and tour managers look after us, and I got on with him really well, and you know, he could see I was a really good drummer. Well, he said that, I'm not saying that. That sounds too egotistical, but he really liked what I did. I got on with him really well. So, you know, he also works with a lot of other people like, you know, Steve Vai, Paul Gilbert, you know, all these different people he works with around Europe. And so he had Carl Verheyen, who's been the guitarist with Supertramp for like the last 30 years, come to Europe. And so he knew I could play well, but he also knew that he got on with me. So he phoned me and said, do you want to do the Carl Verheyen gig? I was like, yeah, I've got the dates for you to do that. So we went around the south of France and Italy doing that. And then Alan, the bass player on that gig, had also been called in by Riccardo because Riccardo liked Alan and knew he'd get the job done and was a cool guy. And then Alan was like, yeah, we're having trouble with Martin Barre's drummers. You know, Jonathan Joseph, the drum that was doing it at the time, great player. He was off playing with Jeff Beck and was busy. And so he said, you interested in doing the gig? And I was like, yeah, I used to like Jethro Tull, why not? So, you know, I had an audition for that, but it wasn't even an audition. It was just like, learn the songs and assuming we don't think you're a dick, you've got the gig. So that's my point. Getting on with people and getting good working relationships leads on to other stuff. You know, through Riccardo, I've done Carl Verheyen, Paul Gilbert, Guthrie Govan, Robin Ford, you know, all these phenomenal people that I've been called to play with just because someone trusts me to get the job done and they don't have to think about anything. They phone me and go, right, Darby, here are the dates, here are the songs, and they don't have to think about it anymore. So I think that's important, building up a reputation for being able to get the job done and give people what they want so that they don't have to think about it and they can get on with other problems.
Absolutely.
I think I went off piste a bit there, didn't I?
That's good. No, that's spot on. And actually now we've got the most important question of the interview, which you may have seen. It may not come as a surprise if you've seen some, but here it is. So the most important question of the interview, what's your favourite biscuit?
I did see that earlier on. You know, I don't really eat that many biscuits. I think my favourite biscuit is whatever happens to be in the cupboard when I'm hungry and I go looking. Um, Maybe a Jaffa cake, but is that a cake or a biscuit? That is the eternal question.
Exactly. I think it was classified as a biscuit because cake they have to pay more tax.
But it's like tax, isn't it? There's biscuit tax and cake tax. Yeah, I'd whatever's there in the cupboard is fine, or whatever's on offer in hospitality, I'll probably eat.
Yeah.
But I can't remember the last time I went to the supermarket and went, oh God, I must buy a pack of biscuits. I'm more into my garlic bread.
Oh really? Okay.
Yeah.
You can't dunk garlic bread in tea. That would just be wrong.
No, you probably could. You could put it in gravy though.
No, oh, that's wrong as well. Garlic bread.
How is that wrong? If you've got a meal and you've got some, gravy on your plate and there's a bit left over, you just go. It's like getting a bit of bread and mopping it up.
You wouldn't. But no. You wouldn't have a meal that requires gravy with a side of garlic bread. You wouldn't have like a roast dinner.
As far as I'm concerned, any meal can have a side of garlic bread. Obviously you'd have garlic bread with a pasta, wouldn't you? But I mean, the other night, what did I have the other night? I think I might have had pizza with a side of garlic bread.
Okay.
I'd have a side of garlic bread with a curry.
I was just going to say, surely not like something like a curry. Really?
It's garlic bread. It's bread. Everyone loves bread.
What about with a fried breakfast?
That I could understand. I probably would. I did the other day. We didn't have that much in the house, so I did have beans and veggie sausage because I'm vegetarian now. So I had beans and veggie sausage on an egg on an naan bread.
Yeah, but if that's all
it was all I had, and it was good. I was like, I'll cook the naan bread and just shove it all on top. See, this is what people really want to hear, isn't it?
Exactly. I've got one for you. What do you think about this? Remember the old school? I don't think you get it anymore. I remember it when I was a kid. A Coke float.
Oh, they were good, weren't they?
No, they weren't good.
No, they were. We still see that. What about a root beer float? You get those in America. They're good.
I've not tried that. I just can't deal with that. Like the ice cream's like a dessert.
All right, so you're really going to hate this. I hate drinking milk. Even looking at milk repulses me.
Really?
So if I was to have cereal, which is very, very, very rare, I'd have it with orange juice.
What, not even like almond milk or something?
No, oat milk, none of that.
Horrible. So you'd have your flipping Weetabix and you'd pour orange juice on it?
I would put orange juice on it, yeah.
Oh, no. I'm never going to be able to...
I could have said squash. In terms of learning and getting better at drums, something I notice people do is, they go, oh, if someone's given me this lick, it's a double paradiddle, or, doesn't even have to be a rudiment, just this sticking and this bass drum combination. And they go, yeah, look at it, I can play it really well. But as I'm sure you remember from when we've hung out, is that get the most out of a pattern that you're given. If you find something, mess with it, change it, go, right, I know this ends on a double left, but what if I swap the last left to a bass drum or something? Don't just, settle for the minimum. There's so much more you can get out of one pattern than just what's written on a piece of paper. And that's something I think is really important to say, because too many people just go, oh, I've learned the pattern, that's it. But quite often you can get 25 other things out of one 6-note sticking pattern if you just think about changing things and orchestrating them differently.
Yeah, I was going to say, and even, keeping the same sticking level, but just orchestrating it differently.
Yeah, well, but orchestrating it to me is the first port of call. Putting it around the drums, playing it on a cymbal, playing it on a hi-hat, doing whatever. But also look at the construction of the pattern. If you find you've got a single note, in between two doubles, if it's, I don't know, like a 6-stroke roll, right, left, right, left, why don't you try making the last left, which is a single or bass drum, or the first note, mess around with stuff, and you'd be really amazed at how you can change things. And the other thing I would say as well, say you've got your paradiddle diddle and you've given yourself, I don't know, 3 versions, because you've done one where you make the last what's this? Yeah, I was just checking what the sticking is. Right? I feel like, you know, you take the last double lefts and you make it 2 bass drums. Then stick the original pattern with the new one and make yourself a 2-beat phrase or a 2-bar phrase or a 4-bar phrase. And I think that's a really good way of taking limited knowledge that you might have and creating a ton more stuff out of it without having to rely on your teacher every week to guide you and say, this is what you have to do now. You know, I think if you can go away from a drum lesson and come back and present to your teacher, even if it's one other thing you've managed to do with it, I think that's really good. Another thing I want to say, which I think is important, and I think it gets lost in this day and age of, you know, online and YouTube, is that I think now is a better time than any to learn knowledge. You know, I'm addicted to YouTube. I'm one of the morons that pays for YouTube Premium, so I don't have adverts and I can download stuff. And I'll constantly trawl through looking for stuff to steal off other drummers. And I'll even steal stuff off unheard of people. You know, I might find a video by a 15-year-old kid who's no one, who's only been playing a year, but he's going, and you go, oh, that's kind of cool, and I'll steal that as well. But the whole online learning and teaching yourself is no substitution for having a lesson with a real human being. If you have to do it via Skype, that's fine. But I think one-on-one lessons with a teacher who you respect and who's playing you like, I think is absolutely one of the most important things you can do in forming your drumming ability. You can't just, anyone can copy a lick off YouTube or try and work it out, but I see this when I teach people and I look at things and I go, do you realize you know your little finger's doing this, or your thumb is just creeping here, or you're gripping too tightly? These are all things that, you know, you can't learn off YouTube. So I think I really think getting lessons with someone is the most valuable thing you can do. As you become better, then it becomes a bit easier just to scour YouTube and go, right, yeah, I know what's going on. Studying with someone is paramount.
Yeah, because you don't get any feedback from YouTube.
No.
So it doesn't say to you, oh, your little finger's sticking out, as you say, or your grip isn't quite as efficient as it could be. You know, YouTube can't tell you that. So
and you know, find yourself a good teacher, and as you become a better musician, you know, study with other people. You know, I studied for years. Bill Collis, my original teacher. Then I studied with Colin Walway, who we all know for a long time. Then I used to hang out and study with Thomas Lang, you know, go to his house and play drums for a few hours at a time. And you know, all these people I gain knowledge from. And you can never gain enough. And that, going back to the question earlier, that's why I was saying that, you know, my hobby is learning more and discovering new things. I think the more you learn, the more you have to pull from, and that's a good thing.
yeah, I totally agree. Studying with different people, lots of different people, they may have different opinions, but that's only a good thing for you as a player, because you can take, as long as you take something from lots of different people, it's going to make you a better player.
Exactly. And you know, if you want to stay at home and practice crazy technical stuff, do it. You know, learn everything. You know, I find, you know, I was known for a lot of years as like, oh yeah, he's really technical, but you know, can he just hold down a simple band gig? The answer is yes, I can. But you know, it actually, I went the other way, where I started as a real technical drummer, and then had to sort of show people that actually I can wind it down and do what's required for the gig. But I truly believe all the crazy stuff that I've learned over the years helps me to be a better, simple, in the pocket, groovy drummer. The more you understand about time, the more you understand about note spacing. Yeah, I think that it's great. So I'm talking loads of shit now, aren't I?
It's fine.
The other thing I want to say is that I've been watching, especially with lockdown going on, loads of people doing like, oh, look at me, I'm doing my amazing pad routine practice, and I'm doing this and I'm doing that, and everyone seems to be really sort of hot on let's do everything correctly. And while I think we do have to learn to do everything correctly and get the hands and technique, you know, correct, as it were, there's sometimes there's no substitute for just get on the kit and play and enjoy yourself. You know, it doesn't always have to be, oh shit, is my hand, oh no, my hand's a little bit, I'm not quite that way, I'm not quite that. Sometimes it just doesn't matter. I think you've got to enjoy yourself as well. And actually, I think sometimes, you know, the slightly not the best technique in the world can result in a great feel. I mean, some of the best sounding drummers I know, you look at their technique, it's horrific. And I'm not in any way advocating don't pay attention to your technique. I'm just saying that it's not always the be all and end all of playing. You know, don't get hung up on sitting on a pad and go, right, for 3 months I must just do it this way. Doesn't achieve anything.
Darby, thank you so much for spending your time with us at DrumWise today. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, you too. I've really enjoyed it. It's been good. Even if you don't like my my use of garlic bread with meals.